Okay, so this is the first video request I've gotten, and the request was, been seeing a lot of people trying to grasp gaslighting. So this person wants to know basically what gaslighting is. Well, first of all, the thing to understand is that gaslighting isn't necessarily about hurt feelings. It's about information control. Gaslighting is basically when somebody tries to convince you that your memory, perception, or ability to deal with reality is faulty when it really isn't. The reason gaslighting can be hard to detect is because sometimes we do have faulty views of reality. We can forget, we can have biases, and that's why it's not always possible to tell whether we're being gaslighted or whether somebody's pointing out a genuine flaw in our logic or our perception. However, generally, it's good not to tell somebody to mistrust their perception until you absolutely have proof that they are off or are misperceiving things, because you run the risk of gaslighting them and getting them not to trust their own judgment, either about this particular issue or about it or in general. Being told one time not to trust your judgment, like if you perceive something and I tell you that you didn't really see that, or that I see something different, or that's not there, or blah blah blah, that might not do a hell of a lot of damage. It might just confuse you temporarily, but you'd go back to trusting your own judgment in other topics and situations. However, when it's repeatedly done, or when it's skillfully and believably done, like when they say something even one time that sounds really, really believable, then it can really, really work. For example, if you're told you're always forgetting things when you're really not, you may start to mistrust your memory. Now, somebody could tell you that you misremembered something. You could say, hey, this happened, and the person could say, no, it didn't. And you could say, well, I don't remember it. And they could say, well, your memory is off. You don't remember things, you forget things. And of course, how can you contest that? You can't remember back to what happened because supposedly you've forgotten. For all you know, you may have really forgotten that it happened. A lot of gaslighting is more subtle than that, though. It's not black and white things like, I remember this. No, you don't. It's often stuff like, a lot of times people will gaslight you about subjective things. Like, they're saying something and their intentions were obviously to be jerky, but they deny it, and you think to yourself, well, maybe they had a different intention, maybe it wasn't so obvious, maybe I thought it was obvious that they were being jerky, maybe there's another explanation that I'm missing. And of course, it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible that people could have other intentions than what you assumed. So there's no reason not to trust them and to say, well, maybe there's another explanation. And that's why it's so hard to avoid being gaslighted, because it really is possible for people to misperceive what other people say. And that's why when I hear anti-narcissist counselors and group members and educational or enlightenment posts saying things like, always trust your judgment, or somebody who's telling you this is always lying, don't trust them, I think, well, wait a minute, that's almost kind of like making it worse, because the whole reason this works is because the victim knows that it really could be true, that they could be misperceiving things. So the best way to guard against gaslighting is to just get as much information about the topic as possible. Also, get a second opinion, and if you don't know where to get that, go online and post your problem as clearly and detailed as possible. Please leave spaces and indentations. Don't give us block text, because that's very hard to read. Just a side note. Also, another good thing to do is to read up on signs and symptoms of unhealthy personalities, because that way, when you're getting your second opinion, you'll know whether or not this person you're getting the opinion from is likely toxic. It's very possible that, say, your mother is gaslighting you, but of course your father might not be good help, because maybe he's a dishonest person too. And maybe the people that you're friends with or that your parents are friends with can't help you either because they've maneuvered it so that, or manipulated it so that you're only surrounded by people who back up their warping of reality. So you're not going to get objective information from people in your life. And even your friends, I mean, people can tell when you're misinformed about something. Abusive people can sniff out people who are misinformed about stuff and who have faulty beliefs, and they use that against you. So a person who sees that you're, I don't want to say naive because the problem isn't with you and your brain, the problem is with your lack of information. But abusers can smell out people who don't have the right amount of information about a topic, and they go in and tell you lies about said topic. So if you were to try to get a second opinion as to whether or not you're being gaslighted, make sure the person you're getting the opinion from is not a narcissist. So please study up on narcissists or on general abusive tactics. And yeah, I mean, so examples of gaslighting. Okay, so there's a movie called Gaslight, that's where it gets the name from, in which Ingrid Bergman marries Charles Boyer, and they settle in a house, and he keeps telling her that, or well, I don't know if he keeps telling her this, but the maids that he's manipulated, they keep telling her she's imagining it when the lights go down. There's gas lights back then, and if you have gas lights, you'd realize that if the lights go on in another part of the house, they go off a little bit in another part because the gas is going from one place instead of another. It's going to one place instead of another. It's going to the kitchen instead of the living room, so it dims a little bit in the living room. Now the gas lights dim a little bit, and she says, did anybody notice that? And the maid says no. So she starts to think she imagines things because her husband tells her that. He tells her she's imagining things. And she starts to think, well, oh my God, I must not be able to trust my memory, my perception, etc. And it's a really good movie because it's got a lot of red flags in there that you will notice. And it's a great example, of course, of gaslighting because it shows all the effects of gaslighting on the person. She ends up, I'm not going to give away the ending, but after a while, she ends up not being able to trust herself, and she starts going crazy looking for proof that the lights are going up or down, or that she didn't forget this or that. She has breakdowns in public because, he does it to her there. And they love to do this to you in public because when you get upset, you'll look insane to people who aren't informed or to people who are assumptive. So anyway, this has become kind of a rant, so I'm going to try to focus this a little better. A good example of gaslighting would be, let's say you're looking everywhere for your keys. Now, let's say you look on the mantelpiece. Now, you put them there yesterday, but secretly I took them off there. And you can't figure out where they were. You knew you put them on the mantelpiece, but I've hidden them in my pocket. And I tell you, well, gee, you must have just forgotten. Maybe you put them somewhere else. And I try to basically get you to not trust your own memory. So instead of realizing that I took the keys because, well, there's no other indication that I'm a jerk at this point, you just think that you forgot that you put them somewhere else, and you mistakenly must have thought you put them on the mantelpiece. So, yeah, about gaslighting, the effects of gaslighting are that the person is open to being abused by other people because they already don't trust their memory and judgment. So when a person wants to manipulate you, they look for clues that you don't trust things about yourself, because that way they'll be able to tell you that the problem is with your lack of skills rather than with their behavior. If you think you're oversensitive and you get upset too easily, then they'll do nasty things to you, because when you get upset about them, they'll say, oh, well, I didn't do anything wrong. That's just your oversensitivity going off again. Of course, that's an especially ridiculous one, because even if you got, more upset than normal, that doesn't change the fact that the behavior is bad. Behavior is pretty much either bad or good, regardless of how upset you get. Even if the behavior supposedly wasn't that big a deal, however you measure that, it wouldn't change the fact that it was bad as opposed to good, and that it was proof of a bad character, even if the behavior itself is mild. Also, another gaslighting thing could be to teach you to misinterpret people's intentions. Like a person could make a racist joke and then tell the black person in the room that it wasn't really racist, they're just reading into things. You're reading into it is a very big abuser statement. They love to tell you you're reading into things, which of course is stupid, because even if you were reading into things, that wouldn't mean that what you were finding wasn't true. It could still be true. But I think the idea is that, oh, you're reading into stuff, meaning you're making leaps and conclusions, and you're going down a slippery slope, and you're putting together information to make assumptions and to come to conclusions that aren't supported by the information. And, of course, that's not what you're doing in this case. And even if it were, the person would still be willing to explain their behavior or let you ask questions without making you feel upset or without getting mad at you, because, they wouldn't have anything to hide. So that would be another example of somebody gaslighting somebody. A white person telling a anti-black joke, and let's say it's the kind of a joke where in order to find it funny, you'd have to agree with the racist aspects of it outside of the joke. You'd have to agree with it in real life to find it funny. This is true as a black person or just as a human being with common sense, but this person is saying, no, I swear I'm not racist. So who are you to trust? And now let's say that when you were growing up, you were told that you have bad time perceiving people correctly. You're going to think, oh boy, I must have been doing it again. Here's another non-racist person that I've gone and accused because of my problem. When in reality, you were right, and the people who raised you and the people who are telling you now that you are incorrect are both the ones who are lying. So, okay, gaslighting. What else about gaslighting could I say? That's pretty much it. I'm going to try to make a better video later with more talking points and more organized talking points. So, anyway, I'll catch you then, and just stay safe and always use your own brain and always question things. Bye-bye.